Hello. So today we're going to look at psychodynamic therapy, dream analysis, and I want to do it in a slightly different way. If you've seen my motivation video, the previous one I made about 10 minutes ago, you'll remember that what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend to be a student and see if I can make sense of my PowerPoints and things, and to see if we can learn about dream therapy together. Okay, so what I'm going to show you first, I'm going to share my screen with you. And where's that there? Okay, right. So on my screen, I've got the PowerPoint. Also, below, I wonder if I can do it like this. Down here also, I've got two Word documents. I've got the summary sheet for dream analysis, and I've also got the handout. So I've got those two things which are very useful. As I said in the previous video, we've got both of those. I've also got my textbook handy. So so that if I come across anything on the PowerPoint that doesn't make 100% sense to me, then I've got a couple of places of reference where I can have a look at things. All right. So let's kick off. Let's get to the I'll go from the beginning. Okay, so it's the psychodynamic approach, and we're looking at dream analysis. Now, this will happen sometimes. If I send you, if I post a PowerPoint that I would normally use in class, it will have, it might have things that aren't necessarily relevant. I'll show you what I mean. So, with the people around you, discuss the two following questions. That's the kind of thing that I would ask if we were in class. We do that as a starter. Why do we dream? Why do you think we have dreams? Do dreams have a meaning? Is it possible? Now, what I miss about this is that whenever I raise this in class, people just don't stop talking. Everyone's had a dream the night before, or everyone's had a wacky dream that they've had a few times, and so forth. Okay. So you might want to, if there's, you can have that discussion at home, and maybe you can have that discussion after you've watched this video, because you'll know a lot more about it by then. Okay. Right. So. As I said, so here we have the big picture. So what this teacher's asking me to do is telling me what this PowerPoint is about. Okay, so what I need to understand is, why do psychodynamic therapists use dream analysis? So that's the therapy that psychodynamic therapists use. I need to, it'd be important for me to understand what actually happens when the treatment's taking place, and again, as part of the big picture of things, I need to be able to connect the assumptions of the dynamic approach and the therapy it uses. Okay, so I need to be able to make that link between dream analysis and the psychodynamic assumptions. Hopefully that makes sense. If that's not if you're not sure about that at the moment, press pause and just make sure that you're clear what the big picture is. Okay, so it's worth pausing at that stage. I feel fairly happy. Obviously, I'm probably slightly biased as I wrote this, but I feel fairly happy at this stage. Okay, so let me move on one. So this is the learning focus, and this is the one that tells us how are we supposed to have changed by the end of this lesson. Okay, we're highly motivated, of course. We're thinking about our future, and we know that the stuff that we're learning today is going to take us towards exam success. It's going to take us towards the next stage in our career plan. It's going to take us towards everyone in our family being proud of us being proud of ourselves. It's going to be great, okay? But in order to do all that, we need to think, okay, what do I need to know? So if I don't know it now, what I need to know by the end of this film is, how does dream analysis link to the assumptions of the psychodynamic approach? Yeah. So as we saw with, if you remember the biological approach says that behavior is caused by chemical processes in the body and brain. Okay, so if that's where depression is caused by a chemical imbalance, if you remember, then the way we treat that is by changing those chemical balances, by giving people drugs. If the psychodynamic approach assumes that actually where those problems come from is slightly different, so if they take place, if the reason for mental disorders from a psychodynamic point of view is to do with things going on in the unconscious, then somehow we need to get to the unconscious, okay? And that's where we need to make that link. So you need to know the connection between the dream analysis and the psychodynamic assumptions. The second thing you need to know is the main components or principles of dream therapy, dream analysis, and what happens during the therapy. So when someone goes to a psychoanalyst, a psychodynamic psychologist, in other words, what actually happens in those sessions when they work together. Again, if you're not clear about that, pause the video, have a look on here in your book, and you've got the different sections that are relevant. Okay, or if you don't like that, you can actually go to the handout. Can I do this here? Yeah, you can go to this handout here. Look, you've got two things going on here. You can look on here. Oops, I was doing something else on that one. And so that gives us here, and that's quite useful. How does the psychodynamic assumptions apply to dream analysis? So how does dream analysis link in with the assumption of the unconscious mind? Let's have a look on page, was it say page 32? This is great, isn't it? Look how well signposted that is. So by using this one here, okay. So what it's saying to me, what it looks like, and you'll probably want to put a little bit more detail on this, but if you look on page 32, it says that what the psychodynamic approach believes is that a lot of our problems are in our unconscious mind, right? So the aim of dream analysis is to actually make the unconscious conscious by helping people understand what's going on in their unconscious, by bringing that to the surface. Then we can help solve problems. So that's that link there. You do that, have a look at that in a bit more detail on page 32, and you'll find that very useful. Second one, how does dream analysis link with the assumption of the influence of childhood experiences? So again, that's talking about traumatic experiences. So things that might have happened as we go through the psychosexual stages can cause us problems. So again, dream analysis is actually trying to get to the unconscious, where those problems would be stored, if you like. Okay. How does it link with the assumptions of the tripartite personality? So we just remember, don't we, that in actual fact the three parts are the id, the ego, and the superego, and a lot of the things that the id wants, the primitive childlike bit of us, if you like, a lot of the demands of the id are very unconscious, unconscious, unacceptable, and because of that, the only time when the id can actually get what it wants is actually while we're asleep, in the form of dreams, where it's not going to cause any problems. Okay, so do you see how this works then? So I wasn't sure. Let me go back to my PowerPoint. Yeah, that one there. So I needed to make those links. Let's push on a little bit then. From current slide. Okay, so just a little bit about psychoanalysis generally, and it's based on this idea. That makes sense, doesn't it? That we're based on the idea that we're often unaware of the influence of the unconscious. Are you sure you understand what that means? What I understand that to mean is that sometimes we behave in a way that we do, but we don't really realise why we're doing that. There's something, we may think we're say we're rude to someone for one reason or another. We're rude to someone because they've. We can say that was perfectly fine for me to be rude because they deserved it because of what they did to me. Okay. Now Freud might say, actually, do you know the reason that you behaved in that way was that there was stuff stored in your unconscious that needed to get out. And you weren't aware of all that. You thought you were being perfectly reasonable, but you thought it was perfectly acceptable for you to be rude in that situation. But really, there was unconscious forces at work. So the point of this therapy relationship, is to give the client, the patient, insight, to help them understand what's going on in their unconscious. That's part of it. And the other part is this idea of catharsis. You can look this up, make sure that you really understand what catharsis is, okay? But what the idea of it is, if you think of the human mind like a steam engine, right? A train. Do you remember trains, when we were allowed to go on trains? So a steam engine, if the engine is getting too hot, and the water's threatening to boil, and we think it's going to explode, what the driver does is he kind of pulls the cord like that. This is quite a good impersonation of it, and the engine makes a noise, or the steam engine makes a noise like woo 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 woo, and that steam comes out, and that takes a lot of pressure off. Okay, and Freud says that really our minds are like that. That we're like a steam engine, and sometimes we have to let off steam somehow. And so by getting rid of some of these unconscious things that are going on, or these things are going on in our unconscious, we're letting off steam, and therefore we're going to be able to stay healthy. Okay, so how do the psychodynamic assumptions apply? Have I just done this? This is another thing that might happen, okay, is sometimes but when you look at a PowerPoint, you might get things slightly out of order. That's no big deal, though, is it? So I think I've already talked you through these three. That was when I was looking at the actual handout that goes with this. All right. So if you haven't done that already, have a go now and complete that. So now we're talking about the main components. In the book, it also says principles. So it's like the things that are important, that underlying this. I'm not sure that makes a lot of sense. So I'll try again in a minute. Okay, again, that's one for you to think about. And Freud's view of dreams is that dreams are the royal road to the unconscious. That is a really famous quote, so feel free to remember that one, yeah? So what, according to Freud, the things that happen in your dreams reflect what's going on in your unconscious. Okay, so Freud talks about dreams as being a wish fulfillment. Can you figure out what a wish fulfillment means? Yeah, if we're hoping for something, we want it to happen. If it does happen, then that means my wish is fulfilled. So have a go at the next bit on the handout and complete the missing words section. Okay. Use the information at the bottom of page 32 and define the following terms. What do we mean by manifest content, latent content? Okay, so you need to know what those two are, all right? Again, I think there's space on the handout for you to complete that, but make sure that you've got yourself good definitions of those two, ideally with an example of both, okay? Okay, so then read the examples on symbolism on page 32. In actual fact, the that's the place that would be under the symbolic nature of dreams. That's the subheading for that bit. Okay. Okay, so we've got this idea of latent content, which you should know what that is by now. So latent content is the real meaning of the dream, the real desire of the unconscious, if you like. And it's turned into the manifest content, and the manifest content, as I'm sure you will have on your definition, is what the dream, the story of the dream that you remember when you wake up. And that process is called dream work. Okay, so so for example, if my next door neighbour is getting on my nerves, in my unconscious, obviously, my id, my aggressive part, might be thinking, do you know what would be really handy? This guy who keeps leaving his bin on my door, blocking my driveway. What would be really handy? This is the id speaking. This isn't fully me, and it's not something, I don't want anyone thinking that I would ever do this, obviously. My id might be thinking, oh, I'd really like to I really like killing actually. If I just killed my neighbour, then I wouldn't have any problems with rubbish in future. Now that's the id talking, and you would never really say that out loud in normal company. And but if that was a desire of the id, somehow that's got to be fulfilled. Okay, that's Freud's point. So you might have, for example, a dream where you're driving along in your car and you run over your neighbour's dog. Okay. Now that's not a particularly pleasant dream, is it? But it's nowhere near as bad as nowhere near as disturbing as running over your neighbour. So so that process of turning your desire to kill your neighbour into something else, something symbolic like killing his dog, is what happens in dream work. There we go. Okay, so again, you've got a task to do on your handout. So again, I would pause the video and crack on with that. Make sure that you understand the processes. Make sure that you've got examples. And I suppose this is a good time to say that if you don't get any of this, make a list of the questions that you're not sure of, and then somehow get them to me. There's plenty of ways of doing that, isn't there? Okay, so still thinking about the main components of dream analysis. The aim is not so much to interpret the dreams. In a way, it's more to, it's not just to figure out what is the dream about, it's more to uncover what's going on in the unconscious. Okay, so because if we can get an idea of what's going on in the unconscious, if we understand, if we have an insight, which is like a clear understanding of what's going on in the unconscious, then the unconscious won't be driving our behaviour so much. And also we can see what impulses dreams are releasing through this process of catharsis, of going woo woo on the train, which is the brain. Okay. Oops. Okay, so oops. I don't know how. Oh yes, I get it. Okay, right. So the purpose. So let's just make sure we get these. So you've probably figured this out. Okay. The purpose of there's two types of content. There's manifest content and latent content. So the purpose of dream analysis in therapy, therefore, is to uncover the something, the hidden content, whatever that is. If it's not hidden, it's another word for it, of a dream by examining the latent. Oh, damn it! By examining the other content. I've told you the wrong thing there. And that's the sort of thing that would happen in class. And in class, I would just say, sorry, I got that wrong. Okay, so let's, rather than have to go back and record this whole flaming video again, which I've got no intention of doing. So the purpose of dream analysis in therapy, therefore, is to uncover one kind of content of a dream by examining the something content. Okay, you can work that out, and I'm sure you get that. And if you don't get that, then you need to get in touch. Okay. The patient will talk to the therapist about the something content of their dream, and the therapist will help guide the patient to uncovering the something content of their dream. Again, another challenge for you. It's always done in the context. That should say context. There's a spelling mistake as well. Done in the context of the person's own life and experience. Yeah. So if one person dreams about a dog, that might mean something else. That might mean something completely different to someone else who dreams about a dog. Okay. Importantly, and it's not the therapist who makes the final decision. Okay, so this is something you really need to be aware of. It's not the therapist who makes it. The therapist says, oh look, your dream might mean this, or your dream might mean this, or whatever. And then it's the patient who has to pick the explanation which they feel is true. Which is quite important, because it's just look at, there's a little bit of power being given to the patient there. Okay, final bit of this one. I'm not sure how long I've gone on actually. Might be around about the 15-minute mark, I'm hoping. Okay, so on your sheet, there's a story about Bob. Fill in the box and interpret Bob's dream. Try and understand what you think Bob's dream might mean. Okay, right. So that is that's where we've got up to, really. Okay, so hopefully this will help you. You should have some stuff written down. You should have some stuff completed in your on that that handout, or you should have some notes which you've made as you've gone along, and how you organise those is up to you. But if you're worried about that, or you've got problems organising it, give me a shout. I was going to say something else there. No, I think that would do. Okay. Key thing that, oh yeah, and you should also have a note of any questions that you need to ask, so that you can raise them with me one way or the other. Okay. Right, I'm going to stop sharing now. Hopefully that's useful. Can you give me some feedback on this one? Yeah, it's really important that you do, because I'm really trying to imagine what it's like being you trying to learn. Okay, now that's very difficult, obviously, because I'm a good 10 years older than you, but also I want to try and get inside what's going on, what you're experiencing when you're trying to learn from me, so that I can make that an easier process for you. Okay, so please whack some comments on the classroom, and be ready to answer. There's probably going to be one surprise question that you need to answer at the end of this one. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for popping in, and I'll see you again soon.